Hello, Namaste. I welcome you all to the 42nd session of Gurubodha with my Ayurveda teacher, Dr. M.B. Guraja sir. I dedicate this and all of my works at the holy feet of Dr. H. Chandrasekhar Udupa. Uh, Guraja sir, in one of the discussions in another group, was commenting on mixing up of Ayurveda herbs, like traditional Ayurveda herbs, with modern supplements like vitamins and lycopene, green tea, etc., and making it a combination and bringing that to the market in the form of nutraceuticals. So these nutraceuticals are a separate section of products. They are not like Ayurveda medicines. To bring in nutraceutical to a market, you need not have GMP license, etc. So it is largely considered as a food supplement product, and modern supplements are getting mixed up with Ayurvedic herbs, and because they are not considered as traditional Ayurveda medicines or even proprietary Ayurveda medicines, there is not much clinical tests done on that, and the rules are a little bit lax because it's considered on par with like dietary supplements. So this is one example of that. I mean, there are other ingredients. I have hidden the brand name and whatnot just for the sake of discussion. And also I have seen like aloe vera, cinnamon, and selenium, and vitamins with amla and vitamins with silvin merianum, which is very famous liver tonic, largely prescribed by allopathic doctors. Gurata sir, is this an attempt to attract more prescribers or more customers into the Ayurveda fold? How do you see it, sir?
See, it's a very typically mentality of the people in the market and in the industry, trying to read between the lines. There are very clear-cut regulations to be branded as a medicine, and there are some stringent rules to be followed. So, in order to avoid those stringent rules, they are trying to taking out via media or something like that. So, they have come out with a new idea of combining all these drugs with some food supplement or some nutraceutical or something like that, and branding it as nutraceutical. So we need to be very, very clear whether a drug falls under the category of nutraceutical or not, or whether it is a falls in the category of drug or not, or whether this particular dravya we comes under the category of ahara or aushadha. That we needs to be very particular about. And once that is established, then there should not be anybody who is mixing up these things. For example, if they commit with amoxicillin adding with vitamin C, then it is accepted as a nutraceutical. It cannot be. Ashwagandha, Shatavari, Haridra, all these type of drugs are combining with silimarine or curcumin or even some extracts from the things are folic acid, biotin or glutathione, and all these things combinations. Even though they give a scope for a new category of drugs, or it may bring out a positive effect on the body, or it may be very good in treating the conditions, but we should be very much careful in bringing these combinations to the market, because if an Ayurvedic drug has to come into market as a proprietary drug, it needs to go through a lot of rules and regulations, clinical trials, and so many things, toxicological studies, viability studies, so many things. But if it is branded as a food supplement, then easily it can be marketed. Just because of that, easily it can be penetrate the market in the name of food supplement. These Ayurvedic herbs or drugs, which are treated to be as Virya Pradhana Dravyas, being transformed into a food supplement or a herbal nutraceutical or something like that. It is a little bit, I'm worried about this. It needs to be still more some stringent laws, and we need to have some guidelines in this. Present guidelines may be allowing these people to come in this way, but it is not a right type of thing. But of course, for a scientific mind, if it is such combinations are done, what happens that required a broad clinical trial, and once it is established they are safer, and they are very good. And then you can name it as a nutraceutical or a pharmaceutical, whatever it is, you can use it.
Whether a particular herb can be used in a dietary supplement or not is that demarcation is not very clear even from the authorities. For example, if I'm making like a herbal tea with ashwagandha and I'm marketing it as a food supplement, can ashwagandha be a dietary ingredient which can be taken by millions of people on a daily basis or not? Triphala, can it be taken on a daily basis or not? So, of course, there are some herbs, some spices, etc., which can be taken on a daily basis and we take it. For example, curcumin. But it will be very helpful if the government of Ayush department takes up the responsibility of categorizing that if you are using certain herbs, Ayurveda dravyas as dietary supplements, only these can be used, and there should be a list which are strictly used only in Ayurveda medicines and not in supplements. So,
See, it is not like that. See, Shatavari or Ashtimatu or Kurkumin or Saridra, all these things we also use it as a drug. We also use it certain as a food. So when such is the criteria, there is no harm in bringing in new combinations. But there should be some laws. We have a very stringent laws for Ayurvedic medicine to come into market. Whereas if somebody mixes these things with some other phytochemicals or some other biotin or something like this, or vitamins or folic acid, and it brand it as a nutraceutical, then it becomes a whole idea of drug itself, or Ayurvedic drug itself becomes jeopardized. That cannot be accepted. We need to be very clear on that certain times, and demarcation is required. And once which is a drug, a particular ashwagandha or haridra, which is considered as a herb or a medicine, which cannot be come under the category of ahara. Only those things which are in practice since ages, which are used as in the culinary substances or the medicinal things, which are very sharp in nature, virya pradhana, but still they are used in the dietary things. Only those can be given a special status or a category, and it can be brought under the combinations of nutraceuticals. Otherwise, ashwagandha, shatavari, estimadu are being allowed to come into the nutraceutical field. It's not quite acceptable.
I've seen this nutraceutical debate and using it as a shortcut method to bring Ayurveda products into market with combined with vitamins and other things. Dr. Harish Verma from Canada, I mean, when he was in India, I mean, there was a chat with him very long back that he till he was there, he was like fighting it legally and all. So the problem is this, that if an Ayurveda product is to be brought to the market, there are stringent laws to suppose I want to make a combination of ashwagandha with triphala and say Arjuna for hypertension. I mean, just a hypothetical one with sarpagandha, for example. So I have to prove that all the ingredients that I'm using are there in the traditional Ayurveda textbooks. So there is 50 plus Ayurveda textbooks given. So I had to show that exact page number and shloka and all the references. And then then I had to make the formula, how I'm making the formula. I had to reveal the ingredients and process. And also I had to produce clinical documents proving the safety and also animal experimental documentation to prove the efficacy. So safety and efficacy both have to be proven. And after that, the drug licensing department will take time to go through that, and finally they will approve that. Only then I will market it. So suppose I want to use, for example, vitamin B12 with ashwagandha, or an iron supplement with folic acid with say amla or triphala. I cannot do that as an Ayurveda medicine because they will argue that vitamin B12 is not mentioned specifically in an Ayurveda textbook as a traditional Ayurvedic ingredient. So there are barriers here, but in a nutraceutical route, because it is a new category, they can do whatever they want, and the clinical trial requirement is also not there because they are not making any specific claim. So it acts as a shortcut method or bypassing method for them, and Ayurvedic industry is at a disadvantage if that route is allowed. It would be a good idea if Ayurvedic herb repository or the pharmacopoeial index of Ayurveda in terms of herbs is revisited, and newer herbs like modern herbs, maybe Sylvan Merianum. So that can be added into the Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia, so that it increases the range of herbs that we can use. Now it is restricted to only certain number of textbooks, and we can use only old herbs that are there mentioned in these textbooks. Probably a little bit of vitamins and other things are included in the range. At least it will help Ayurveda medicine industry to come up with more solutions.
See, there is one technical issue in that. A newer drug, if it is there, then we need to establish its Rasaguna Virya Vipaka. We don't have a standard protocol or a tools we can establish with those things. So establishing a Virya, Vipaka and all these things of a new drug, it becomes a great problem. And because it is still in the nascent stage, that whether how to come out with the standard protocol of identifying a Vipaka in a laboratory model of any drug is very difficult. Or even the Prabhava, it can be done only with the clinical trials, and of course there are stringent rules and regulations being laid out with respect to the modern medicine. The same laws has been trying to implicate in the Ayurveda system, Ayurveda field, or even the herbal industry. So many times this herbal industry, this pattern may not holds good with the chemical drugs, and the laws which are related with the chemical drugs may not be holding good with the herbal industry. So we need to revisit these things and re-understand these things, and we need to bring out new areas or new rules and regulations or some ideas to bring out in what way we can address these issues. If that is achieved first, then we can introduce new materials into the materia medica of Ayurveda.
Like at least a Western herb which is already in the market, for example, Sylvan Merianum. I mean, that's used for liver disorders. At least there are some clinical studies that, or some experimental studies that are done, and it's a effect on digestive system or how it acts. Net effect is hot on the body or cold on the body. At least some profile of the herb, if it is already established, then it can be Ayurvedized in terms of Rasaguna Virapaka a lot easier.
See, that can be done, but we don't have a standard protocol of identifying each and every drug on those lines. That is one point. And the second thing is, we cannot simply somewhere down the line, some institution or somebody or individually, they might have established these things, but we need to give a certain reasoning for that and try to incorporate those things into the materia medica, and there should be some regulatory authority which can control all these things, and they can just add these new drugs to the Indian materia medica, saying that this drug can be named in this way, and this is containing Rasaguna Virapaka and so on, and it is accepted officially. So such type of activity is not taking place. So that's the reason we cannot push in or include the many new herbs or the chemicals or Western herbs into Indian system of medicine yet.
There can be a kind of a committee which is done, for example, like they came up with like Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia of India, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And also Ayurveda Formulary of India was a work from Ayush department only. So probably from government, if a panel is made, some work can be done, rather than like we individually guessing what could be the Rasaguna Virapaka.
Definitely, such type of things are required. That's the reason many times many seminars have been conducted and many presentations also done. These drugs which are not included in the Ayurvedic original classical texts, and these things are known as Anukta Dravya. That category has been explained, which is not explained in the classical text. That's why it's called as Anukta Dravya. But whether these Anukta Dravya can be taken into Ayurvedic materia medica, whether it is accepted officially, that is a big question mark. That needs to be done with some committee which can handle these things.
From the times of Vedas, then to the Samhitas, to the Nigantus, Lagutrais, and whatnot. I mean, they have been adding newer and newer herbs into the pharmacopoeia, and I feel that it should continue.
Officially, of course, it's anticipated that it should continue, but way back from I think somewhere around 16th or 17th century AD onwards, I don't think so. Something extraordinary has been done even in the post-independent also. We have not included any drugs as such into the materia medica.
If I'm not wrong, Ayurveda Sarasangraha is the latest of the books, which is written in Hindi, and that is there in the list of Drugs and Cosmetics Act book. That was written again, like you said, in probably 18th or 19th century only. So and at least, I mean, if they are allowing this selenium and other kind of mixes to be branded as nutraceuticals, at least we should have some amount of clinical studies, though it is a nutraceutical category, because I mean, irrational use of Ayurveda herbs, or even the modern things like green tea or linseed oil, like lycopene, etc. We cannot be very sure that it is not a viruddha wrong combination. Just to ensure that the safety of efficacy, there should be guidelines to make sure that this is backed by science in terms of safety and efficacy, clinical trials and whatnot, sir.
See, even in food industry, there are many preparations, or many, even observe even the North Indian food diet or even South Indian diets, peculiar combinations are made. Why such peculiar combinations are made, and why not the other combinations are not made? It is because they have been using those combinations and they felt it is good and that is giving good results and it is not causing any dosa vitiation. So based on those parameters, they accept from the long back and it has become a tradition and people are using it. So when such new combinations are being to be done, then we need to understand the drug-drug interaction. We don't know how herbal, Ayurvedic drug, which is Virya Pradhana, combined with a modern drug, something like that, or nutraceutical brand like lycopene or even folic acid, grapeseed extracts, or something like that. When these things are combined, we don't know how the drug-drug interaction takes place, and we don't know exactly how it behaves. So it may be synergetic effect or it may be even antagonistic effect. So in order to understand those things, it is better that if such combinations has to be brought in, then there should be some new regulations to control those things, and while bringing them, it should be understood, and even a clinical trial is a must for these type of things.
The problem with allowing it without any research data is that, suppose this combination, for example, causes some side effect in some patient, all the blame will come to our humble estimado, and all things will be okay. The system is biased against Ayurveda a little bit, at least in the whole market is considered, especially they're not allowed charak shapats, or they want to have Hippocratic oath. I mean, the lobby is too much against pure Ayurveda.
See, definitely, whenever you want to bring it something in the name of Ayurveda, they are not ready to accept. See, that's the reason when we go through many things in the history of Ayurveda literature, Ranjit Rai Desai has brought in some book on Sharira Kriya, wherein he has accepted and mentioned it as Pepsinotpadaka Granthi. So, pepsin term has been accepted and it is used by the author. But when it comes to Rasayana term, the same Rasayana term is not taken by the Westerners or the allopathics or the Western medicine followers. They made it into immunomodulator, or it is a geriatric, something like that. A new terminology they try to bring it, and they don't accept your own terms as it is. So it is their very clear nature that whatever you give it, they don't accept it as it should be. They'll try to make it in some other way and try to bring in a new terminology and then accept the same thing with that terminology, not with your terms. That is the thing what we need to understand or observe these observations. When we made such type of explanation by the Westerners, even for anti-accident scavengers or even free radical scavengers, these terms have been used for rasayanas. They didn't straight away accepted the rasayana term as it is. So we need to understand this. Their mentality is like that very clearly. They don't accept or give scope for understanding the Ayurveda as it is in its own term. That's why they want Ayurveda to be also learned or understood in terms of Western medicine.
And I've seen that in US FDA, they collect a lot of feedback from the public, and they will do random testing on certain laboratories, and also They collect market samples and randomly check. And if there is any company product is not good, they will withdraw it from the market and they will announce it in a newsletter. So such system should also be there in both dietary and Ayurveda medicine market, even for allopathy for that matter. Like though it is just paracetamol, I mean, some pharmacy manufacturing paracetamol might have missed a purification step, and that can cause an impure drug in the market. So to have, we should also have some kind of a post-market surveillance and like a watchdog to screen through the products that are there in the market, and to from time to time inform the public about which company product is being withdrawn or recalled. So
Of course, it is a somewhat genuine model of existence. It should be, but unfortunately or fortunately, we don't have certain parameter to study or understand. For example, if a person comes out with a product in the market in the name of some XYZ containing some churna, on the composition list outside he will quote there are 10 drugs inside that. Are we have a system or a protocol or a tool which can identify all these 10 drugs are present in that churna? No, we don't have. Once again, we need to understand that when such things are there, we need to depend on the chemical parameters of those drugs, their active principles, and whether they are present or not. Then we need to go for that. So it's very difficult to identify. That's why there are many times blames have been posted on Ayurveda. For example, in any condition, serious natured condition, by giving an Ayurvedic therapy or a treatment, patient gets better and feels comfortable with that, and he says about these things that I am feeling comfortable with these medicines. Then the immediate blame on thing is that definitely it might have used steroid in that combination. So straight away they will blame. They are not ready to accept the truth that Ayurveda is also a system which is explained. And before the Western medicines came into existence, Ayurveda was the only system which is present and prevailing, and it was helping the people to maintain their health and even the cure the diseases. But their monopoly and their way of penetration to the market and their conveying to the people, all so many things, they have changed the protocol of understanding Ayurveda, and they very easily they blame Ayurveda without even any studies.
and especially the steroid taboo never goes out of fashion. Like it's always there. I clearly remember for a Bangalore lady, I had given, I mean, she had knee pain, and I had given R compound of Allersin, a very wonderful product. And within one day, her pain was reduced. And general notion is that Ayurveda medicines will take like at least a week or 10 days to show result, but it reduced the pain to a considerable extent by the next day itself. And she was our neighbor in Bangalore, and she came the next day and said that, doctor, does it contain steroid, because the pain reduced just in one day? And it is like as if questioning my integrity that I have prescribed some steroid drug. And so it is a question on a wonderful legal Ayurveda product in the market. So an Ayurveda doctor is kind of a humble, easy target from all directions. So,
No, he is a simple punch bag. Everybody can punch him. So that is the thing which is happening very clearly. When a patient gets a result, they'll say these type of things. But you try to understand that usually the people who visit an Ayurvedic doctor is one who has already, for these type of problems, he has reached all other modern medicine systems and other existing systems, and when all they shut the door and they said nothing can be done and we don't have treatment or this much only or it is not possible, then they will turn to Ayurveda. So when they come to Ayurveda with such a type of thing, and most times what we have at our plate is chronic diseases. And people expect that when a chronic disease comes to an Ayurvedic doctor and we start treating it, it takes time, 3 months or 6 months to stabilize, and then it becomes reduced. And this has developed and given a clear notion to the people that Ayurveda is slow and things will settle down lately. But it is not like that. It is the disease which has a nature of suppressing. See, we have a Sukhasadhya Vyadhi, Kashtasadhya Vyadhi, Asadhya Vyadhi, and Yapya Vyadhi. That categorization we need to understand. The condition for which you approach an Ayurvedic doctor, if it is a Sukhasadhya Vyadhi, definitely within few days the result will be there. If it is an Asadhya Vyadhi or Kashtasadhya Vyadhi or Yapya Vyadhi, then definitely it takes some certain time. But just because it takes certain time, it doesn't mean that Ayurveda is slow. If anybody complains that Ayurveda is slow, I ask them, just you come with me, I'll give you one tablet, and the next morning we will be running to the toilet multiple times and show that it's the efficacy of severity and it is the intensity of the medicine.
I usually say that, I mean, in olden times, especially in the times of Sushruta and all, if an arrow entered your chest and came back from the back, they used to go to an Ayurveda doctor then. So, Ayurveda was, is, and always will be it is an advanced science, a thing that, another formula adopted by the modern people is that suppose a liver case is there and we have, for example, hepatitis with liver cirrhosis, and we treat it, it says that, oh, it was already in the auto recession stage of the disease, and the remission happened auto. It was not just because of medicines, it is just the disease itself receded on itself.
So that's it always. If they treat, it is treated and successfully treated. And if we treat, it is naturally happened, not because of the drug. There is one big proverb is there in Punjab that your dog is a dog and my dog is something like that. So something like that. So always they'll feel that, of course, the trend is changing. There are some rational thinking minds even in that category. They are accepting slowly. But of course, it's still in a long way to go.
For people who are interested, the Punjabi dialogue is like, "Tu vada kutta Tommy, but mera kutta kutta." Means your dog is Tommy, but my dog is just a. I mean, the reason we are discussing all these things that is simple, that Ayurveda practitioners who are coming into the market or opening their clinic, they should be knowing all the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. At least mentally, they'll be ready to face the issues. And coming to the few other questions and topics that are coming in the chat, how do we define a drug? Because a dravya can be any substance. Sometimes it is fine line dravya used as a food and a drug. For example, amla is consumed in the form of pickle or candy also. I mean, the legal definition of Ayurveda medicine is that there are two definitions. One is traditional Ayurveda medicine and proprietary Ayurveda medicine. Traditional Ayurveda medicine is that there is a list of 50 plus books. If the formula is mentioned there, then if you are exactly copying the formula and making it, that is traditional Ayurveda medicine. And if it is proprietary Ayurveda medicine, like I told, the formula need not be there exactly, but the herbs are there. You are making your own combination. So go to the Ayush department with your license document with safety, efficacy studies, and all, and they will check and they will approve or disapprove.
Basically, we need to understand one thing, that is, what is a dravya? Dravya, anything can be dravya. That's true, fine. But which is ahara dravya and which is aushadha dravya, that needs a demarcation, and it has been very clearly said in Ayurveda. One which is rasa pradhana is aushadha, ahara, and one which is virya pradhana, it is aushadha. So very clearly, virya pradhana dravyas we cannot consume in a dose or a diet pattern of food. Anything which can be consumed in the form of a food or a quantity in that nature, then it is usually a rasa pradhana dravya. So that is a basic differentiation between ahara dravya and aushadha dravya. Aushadha dravyas are virya pradhana. So virya pradhana dravyas we cannot consume in large doses, which can be consumed only in small quantities. That's the reason, and that's the basic criteria for demarcation between ahara and aushadha.
And also the duration also matters, right, sir? Because I mean, the Virya Pradhana medicines, they are given to specific diseases. They act in a way to correct the liver function, heart functions, etc. But once a person is healthy, most of the medicines are to be withdrawn gradually. So.
Definitely, once the things are settled down, and of course there are parameters, subjective parameters, and there is a clinical, supportive documentation, as well as laboratory findings which support the things, and we can definitely use certain drugs whichever is required, and which is not required and the function of the drug is over, then that will be removed or withdrawn from the treatment protocol.
So I noticed that ragi is a bit constipating and drying to me. Adding ghee wasn't sufficient to counter it, but I need to take it regularly for some health reason. Someone mentioned that some jaggery is mixed into the matti generally to help. Is this true?
See, definitely, Ragi is a Ruksha and Shita Dravya. Definitely, it is going to cause a constipation. Even sometimes, some people will develop diarrhea while consuming a ragi because it contains comparatively rich quantity of fibers, which cannot be easily digestible in many gut. So based on these parameters, if you observe, definitely it will be constipating. And to overcome the constipation, ghee is the special material or the right kind of material it should be added to that. Second thing to add you can into that is the the milk. So you can take the ragi in the form of milkshake, so ragi malt, something like that, which will not be constipating. And for your nature, if it is causing a constipation and drying type of thing, then we need to introduce ragi into your system step by step, slowly, by adopting in a small quantities. You should not simply increase the dosage to shifting from the one to rice. Like for example, if you are a regular consumer of rice and you suddenly shift to ragi or some jowar, then definitely there will be some problems. We need to understand this. Step by step, you can increase it. And of course, to mixing with the ragi to in order to avoid its shita guna as well as rukshata, ghee is the first one. Second one is dugda, the milk.
Yeah, given that millets should not be taken on a daily basis, but but I need to get the ragi for its health benefit on a daily basis because probably it is recommended. How many times, especially the ragi, is reasonable to be used because it's also considered as a millet. So ragi also falls into the general rules of all other millets that it should not be used on a daily basis, sir.
No, see, it's very typically thing is, if you are a wheat-based person, your regular staple food is a wheat, then altering from the wheat to any other thing will definitely will cause you some trouble. Similarly, a person one who is habituated for rice, if shifts to ragi, then also there will be problem. So it is our basic the way we learned and we developed or we grown up by using these food products. And ragi is very familiar and accustomed to the people in particular part of the country. I'm saying about in Karnataka. In southern part of the Karnataka, it is a very popular and very commonly used. It doesn't mean that it should suit you also anywhere else. So when you are told that this is a good type of millet, you can use it on a daily basis. Yes, definitely it can be used on a daily basis. Ragi or the millet. This millet particularly is not so harsh and dry compared to other millets or kodo millet or something like that. Comparatively, those things are still drier and it's better. You can have this ragi in a step-by-step manner. Introduce a ragi powder into the milk in the form of milkshake, something like that. Then you can go for the ragi balls lately with a small quantity, and then slowly you shift on to that. Then that will be very good.
Doctor, so basically, like milk, I have allergy to it. So somebody who has some knowledge of Ayurveda, they were mentioning about adding jaggery to the ragi, and I even asked that can it be sugar? But they said no, jaggery is better. Like when you make that ragi mudde, right? So does jaggery also help in countering the drying, constipating nature of ragi?
No, it cannot be. See,
Okay,
first of all, when we make ragi mudde or ragi balls, it is understood that it should be done with the water. Usually it
right.
will be done with hot water. But people who want to make it soft, they add milk while producing it or making it. And
Okay.
nobody will have any problem with the desi cow milk. If you are in outside India, somewhere in the US or UK, then you may have this problem with the milk and all those things. Otherwise, if it is an Indian type of thing, we don't find any problem with the milk as such.
Yeah.
Population, we don't find it because it's a desi cow and that milk will not be problematic and it won't cause you any allergy. So basic
Right.
thing that you can add if it is found to you. That is, milk is the best one. And we also
And
prepare
ghee.
in by using ragi. We use a little bit of jaggery or even the sugar in the form of ragi huri to we call it. That is also been done, and that is comparatively okay. Even that is also eaten along with dugda or milk.
But that you're telling that jaggery, the purpose of the jaggery in that is not to counter the drying nature.
Yes,
It's just for taste or some other reason.
yes, yes.
Okay. So doctor, you mentioned this like ragi, the intake. So I'm not from Karnataka. I'm from Delhi. So, but few times a week is reasonable, right? That should not like twice a week. Is that considered reasonable enough to get the benefits of ragi, but at the same time not being too much because it's a millet, so it's not something I'm used to daily.
Okay, you can start like that because you are not habituated with the ragi as it is, so you can slowly introduce the ragi into your system. Okay, twice in a week it is a good type of thing. You can go with that. But
Okay.
what I suggest is don't replace a one-time food for ragi. That may not be good, and that will going to cause you trouble.
Okay.
The total quantity of diet what you're consuming at one time, in that some portion you give it to ragi, so that will be helping because you'll be eating your regular wheat based things along with
Right.
that little bit of ragi you introduced it, then that will
Okay.
not be going to cause any constipation or something like that.
Okay, okay, understood. Okay, and doctor, then second question also had was for increasing bone strength, babul, like they said, there's babul gond, that resin.
Hmm.
It is told is good. So in what? Because I have like in what form? Can I just like mix it in water and take, and then what dosage would be appropriate?
See, it's a bubble gum bond is very kashaya, astringent in nature. That should not be consumed in form by mixing it water,
Okay,
but that can be taken in the form of adding with some food materials like ragi or something like that to little bit quantity, but quantity has to be maintained in a proper way, otherwise it may become much more constipating because that is also stambhaka in nature, bubble gum.
right.
So reason behind that why it is using is to increase the bone strength mean because it's any stambhakar kashaya pradhana dravya is basically made up of panchabhautic composition. It is predominantly with prithvi and vata. I
Yes.
mean this one. So prithvi part is there. So that's the reason we whenever we use such type of kashaya pradhana dravyas, it will increase the bone strength.
Okay, so you're saying that one can mix it with other food materials like
Yes,
some vegetable or some ragi like that,
yes,
not with water alone.
yes.
And the dose like 1 gram or half gram or
It is better at the lower doses because higher doses may cause constipation.
okay, so something like 250 milligrams or something. Okay. And doctor, last question which I had before leaving. Sorry, I actually have another meeting to attend. I'm already little late. This in Ashtanga Hridayam Sutrasthan verse what this Sutrasthan Matra Shitya Adhyaya. It says the like verse 42 43 it mentioned about rice, wheat, other things which one can take daily. The only other Sukadhanya which was mentioned in that was Yava, which I think is the modern day barley. What so what about supplements like I mentioned for bone strength, like things like water chestnut flour and this amaranth flour. So this what kind of frequency is good for a general person to take these? Water chestnut is that Shringataka. I don't. You must be familiar with. It's
Yeah.
a trap. Yeah. Okay. So
Shringataka or the water chestnut is Trapanatans botanically,
yes.
and it is in northern India. Usually they use it as a fruit. They I mean edible and it's a fresh one. And it is also its atta is available in the market and it is used on the various Ekadashi or something like
Yes.
that. Whenever it is done, they use it. And typically, this Singada Atta and all these things have been explained as a medicine in Ayurveda to a large extent, and people they want to give it change to their system. They have introduced this. Is the concept of Ekadashi is also like that, because every day you're regularly eating the same type of food. Body also needs a certain rest and something else. So they need to go for an alternative things, and that's why they mentioned it as upavasa or something like that. Alternatively, they'll go consume little bit of other type of foodstuffs. So similarly, in northern India, when regularly they consume gehu, and that is wheat, and sometimes they go for the singada atta and all those things in the vratha, what we call as upavasa, something like that. Along with that, the important reason being to improve the bone strength. It is not just simply taking the supplements. Supplements, if it is taken in, that needs to be digested and absorbed into the body. So that requires a good quantity of Agni inside. If Agni is not present, then whatever the supplement you give it, it is waste. Point number
Right.
one. Point number two, whenever there is a typically Mamsa Dhatu Agni is more stronger, then it also helps to maintain the Asti Dhatu. So that's the reason if you want to increase the bone strength, you need to have a little bit of Vyayama or usage of muscles. If you use muscles, then totally they see whatever the system comes with the Prithvi Pradhana Dravyas, that will be absorbed and made into a bone strength materials. So it is just not simply by giving some supplements the things will be settled down. It requires a lot of other things, and we need to expose ourselves to sun in order to get the vitamin D. And in the presence of vitamin D from the sun rays, that will help the calcium and other things to bind things. And we have a bone binders or calcium binders, which will bring these materials to the place where it is required. So all these things takes place with a lot of issues. So we need to have a balanced activity of selectively drug taken in a selective doses in a pattern which suits us. That's the reason. And of course, to understand whether our dosage is going in the right direction or not, we can once in a while go for a laboratory establishment of vitamin D and even the serum calcium and such other things.
Okay, so you're saying that these Ekadashi Vrata flowers that we use, like this water chestnut, the Shingoda flower or Rajgiri flower, these actually are Virya Pradhan. They are actually medicines, and they should not be consumed like halwa or some puri or some those because the Agni, if it is Mandagni, then it will make problem only. Better is to do some Vyayam, like you said, and get the sunlight. So those are more important than taking these products, like these ingredients.
All products, whatever you take it for the purpose of bone health, until unless if you don't do proper exercises and expose yourself to sun rays, then it will be waste.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, doctors. Namaste.
Mm.
And regarding the millets, sir, I have a theory that uh, if someone it's heavily marketed and everybody will be tempted to try out millets. Like one point that you raised is very valid, that it should be done slowly, and there should be gap. It should not be suddenly taken every day and replacing meals and whatnot. But if you're trying to adopt a new millet or new food ingredient, probably we should pick pick the season when Agni is very good, like in autumn where Pitta is little dominant, and also in winter when Agni is good. Probably those seasons are better to try new ingredients rather than trying in monsoon or in Kapha season like spring, where Kapha will be more and Agni will be less.
Yes, definitely. Comparatively, using these new type of things during the period when we feel that Agni is more, that is in autumn and winter season, we should avoid as well as possible in spring and Grishma and Varsha Rutu. During these times, it should be avoided, new trials. And of course, once again, in this, if a person one who is trying is a very young, definitely will have a very good Agni. He will have good Agni if it's in a Pitta Pradhana Kala. And if he is a old age person, automatically his digestive capacity has dropped down. And even in winter, he may not able to consume much more. So all these issues are there. It not be a single factor. It's always multifactorial, and we need to understand all those points.
Role of these role of an Ayurveda doctor as nutritionist is such a lively thing that we can a new Ayurveda practitioner can take, right? Because I mean, there is this standard nutrition, like modern nutrition, that is there available, but combining that with these Ayurveda principles, an Ayurveda doctor who wants to concentrate only on that can really excel really well.
See, there's a reason. There is a certain things called as a tailor-made things for everything. Ayurveda is not tailor-made thing. It is customized to each and every individual. We need to customize that. We need to guide based on the entire history what we take while taking the things. We try to analyze his prakriti. We try to analyze his place of birth, where it is, where he has grown, and what he is doing, and how it is his dinacharya, how is ratri charya, and everything we can take into consideration. Then we try to adopt a total protocol where we give medicines. We also suggest some modifications in lifestyle. We also suggest them some changes in the food pattern, and even so many things. Even the patya, ahara, kalpana, everything we suggest to them as an Ayurvedic doctor. That's the reason when these combinations are very neatly combined, we get a very wonderful results.
Any public person who want to watch this in YouTube, you want like dietary fine tuning, or if you want a dietitian, probably an Ayurveda doctor is a good choice.
And my question was that we understand that millets are drying in nature and etc. etc. One of the ways that has helped me is, number one, if I need to cook millets like rice, I soak them overnight, and then when I cook them, I use adrak, and I use curry leaf, and even some garlic. Right? So, will something like this balance the possibilities of imbalances that millets can create in our systems?
See, very clearly understand these points. Most of the millets are comparatively ruksha in nature, dry in nature, and that dryness varies from, we can say, for example, for understanding purpose, dryness to the degree of 1, dryness to the degree of 2, and dryness to the degree of 3. So, in that understanding, all the millets are in dry in nature, they are ruksha in nature. So, whenever such ruksha is there, means it contains more number or more quantum of fibers in that. So that's why it becomes more dry in nature. And such type of foods which is dry in nature and which is difficult to digest in the gut, and it is causing trouble, in order to overcome those difficulties after eating, so we are trying to cook them in a very typical manner. And because these are very dry in nature, they lack in moisture content, so that's why we soak them heavily for a longer duration in more quantity of water. Then we cook it, and while cooking we add something which is agni improving things like ardraka or shunti and something like that, jeera. So all these things will improve the whatever the preparations we are preparing. It will be digested inside our gut in a very typical manner. To improve that agni, we are adding these things. So it is a typically a right kind of things to do it, depending upon your understanding and your taste and your place where you are staying and all these season. Keeping in all these things in mind, you can make a combination of either shunti or either ardraka, fresh ginger, or jeera, or even hing. That's combinations with the millet, so that it can avoid the pain or digestion related issues later when the millets are consumed.
So, doctor, when we are talking about millets, the question comes because nowadays everybody's trying to divert their, rice and wheat, especially the person with a diabetic. Is millet is good with the diabetic conditions instead of
Definitely,
rice and wheat? And if
definitely.
that's the situation, what is the protocol for this dryness? Because sometimes it creates more dryness for diabetic person. Is that good or not?
See, that's the reason prameha or diabetes or madhumeha, it is due to the excess kapha in the body. So when there is excess kapha, there will be more snigdhata in the body or anxiousness. In order to overcome that, the people are suggesting millet type of things, and because these millets are comparatively drier and they have less madhurata in that and more fibers it's not easy to digest and delays the digestion process. So thereby absorption of glucose is reduced when millets are consumed. So that's the reason they're telling that, because it also contains a less quantity of glucose compared to wheat and rice. So but thing is, you observe that all millets do contain some glucose, but only thing is their absorption will be delayed because of the fiber content in that, and your system is not ready to digest them when we suddenly give it. It may take certain time, and
Right.
people are very much accustomed to eat ragi or something millet in particular part of the world, and similarly in certain part of the world there people are very clearly and they are able to eat bajra. They are very easily digest the jowar. These also bajra jowar also comes under the falls in the category of millets. So
Okay.
they are ruksha in nature. So in entire concept is that we need to give the ruksha pada. I mean, when there is a ruksha dravya is being given, we need to cook it more with more water. And intention of introducing a millet in a person who is suffering from diabetes is just to overcome the anxiousness or the kapha tattvas in the body. But we need to monitor these patients regularly in order to understand what the changes happening inside the body when we introduce these things. Over a period of time, when comparatively these millets are used, patients start controlling the sugar levels, and of course lately off late he starts complaining of pain in the joints or feeling something dryness in the body, something like that. Then that is the time that you need to understand that how to reduce these millets to some other lower down the positions. So we need to understand these things, and of course it's a regular pattern of evaluating the patient each and every time, then adjusting the system. So you need to adjust them with the quantum which you have prescribed earlier. If it is causing a quite good sufficient reduction in the blood sugar levels, and patient is complaining of something like pain in the joints, something like that, then you need to reduce the quantum of millets. That's the reason how we need to balance the protocols.
Okay, so the basically you have to make sure when you give your suggestion for a millets to start, is it better to tell them that okay, start with once a week and see how you feel, or start with a twice a week having replacement of a rice or replacement of a wheat, and then try, or can you mix with a wheat and a rice? Suppose if they are doing a flour, a bread, and you tell them to mix with the wheat flour, is that better way, or just have the millet flour itself to introduce?
Usually in my patients, I suggest them in a very clear manner. See, these millets can be made into kwatachurna, something like that. But the rough structured powder forms can be done, and a very
Right,
fine powder can be done. So I usually tell my patient to mix those things. For example, if you are preparing a cake or pancake, it's called as a roti in Kannada in here. So when
right.
we add the rice flour, doing these things, then I said, okay, you mix 50% of the rice flour and 50% of the ragi millet and make a pancake. So that will be good for the introductory things or something like that which can be introduced, and thereby reduce the load of glucose from the source, from the starch, from the rice portion, and you can introduce these fibers as well as the benefits of millets in the form of 50%. So don't try to replace in any person suddenly the entire diet of one time with millets. That will going to definitely cause you trouble.
Okay,
It,
thank you,
it, is,
doctor.
it is always better mix up with the existing pattern, 50% of that and 50% of this, then mix it up. For example, if you have suji or rava, from that you can make a powder of these things, millets in that fashion, mix it with that and prepare upma. So something like that, we can add both these things 50%, then do it, or maybe 70%, 30%, depending upon the requirement of your understanding.